So, thank you for joining us for another episode of Celebrating the Power of Stories. Often in this space, we're talking about celebrating the power of women's stories, but we will have a few men who are allies, who are supporters of women, and who have their own amazing journeys that are worthy of us listening to as well. I am your host for this episode or this series of interviews, Stacy Hawkins Adams. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. If this is your first time, please hit the subscribe button below because these are stories that are powerful, impactful, and that hopefully will help you find the relevance in your own stories and help you understand how to live a life untapped. What is a life untapped? A life of purpose, passion, impact, and joy, and yes, a little bit of fun. So our special guest tonight, you see him getting set up on the other side, is speaker, motivational speaker, many things we're going to learn about tonight. C. Eric Collier. Had an opportunity to meet him about 6 or 7 months ago. We attended a professional organization meeting together, and I was inspired to hear some of his story. And I'm grateful to have you here this evening, Eric, to share with us.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm really excited about being here with you, and I apologize. I'm just making sure I'm connected well, so I don't have any problems. But I am excited to have you, or excuse me, join you. I'm so used to my own podcast, but I'm excited to join you. And thank you for having me as one of the males to be able to join you because, like I said, I really do enjoy your story as well. Your power to rise up at a tough time and then identify the opportunity in the situation was just awesome to me. I mean, that says a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. And Eric is speaking too. We participated in an event with speakers, a speakers organization led by a mutual friend, publicist of ours, Pam Perry. And he heard me give a keynote message about how to live the life untapped. So that's what he's referring to. So can't wait to dive into your story and share more. So, as I said, your name is C. Eric Collier. Folks can see that
Yes.
on the screen. You also are known as the mayor of motivation. So I can't wait to dive into how that name came about. But before that, tell us a little bit about who C. Eric Collier is, and we'll kind of lead into how you got the name, the moniker, and what that means.
Okay. So, you mentioned, a little bit about me. I've gotten a chance to speak at the National Press Club, and I've co-authored now three international Amazon bestsellers. I've actually gotten a chance to work with industry leaders, but at that point, there was a point where that wasn't going to happen for me. I was at my lowest. I was somebody who was stuck in what I call mental quicksand. And I
Mm,
was had the doubt, fear, and worry just flowing through my mind. And it was keeping me stuck. And to the point where it was affecting my relationship with my wife. I wasn't the father that I needed to be. I wasn't the man I needed to be. And then somebody helped me realize that, hey, man, you don't have to stay where you're at. And
mm,
so through that journey, it started a 2 decade journey that has really changed my whole life. I talk about shifting momentum. And that's a
mm.
key because that night when I met that gentleman, the momentum started shifting in my direction, in my favor, because it gave me the power to really create the life I wanted to live. And on that journey, it's taken me to those things that I mentioned before, being able to do those things that I thought was once impossible. And so now I empower individuals to unlock their potential through breaking through the barriers that they face and then create their own momentum shifts that turn the impossible into possible.
Wow, that is amazing. And I want to unpack that a little bit. I want to take
All
people on
right.
that journey. I know that they hear that radio voice, they see the speaker banner behind you, they see this amazing professional setup, but you said a lot in that few minutes and I really want to kind of unpack that. So, how long have you been married?
So my wife and I just celebrated our 33rd. We've been together 35 years, and I always tell people the story. It's a funny story. We met at my girlfriend's house. But
What?
yeah.
Expecting that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I had to clarify for everybody that it didn't go down like that. But I was truly taken by her when she walked in the door. And I went home for Christmas break and I talked to everybody about her and not my girlfriend. And when
Wow.
I flew back into the airport. My girlfriend was supposed to pick me up. It never happened. And so it turns out she found somebody that she was interested in. So a few weeks later, we happened to be at a basketball game, a rival basketball game, and we started talking, and we haven't separated since.
That is the best meeting story I think I have ever heard. That is amazing. I love it. So we're together 35 years. How many children do you have and how
Yes.
old are they?
So we have three, and they're 33, 30, going on 32, and then the other just turned 30 this year. And then we have six grandkids. So
Ooh,
we got a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law. We're really happy about the family environment. I come from an environment where my parents split when I was 4. And
mm.
through the trials and tribulations of blended families and, living with my single mom and seeing my dad on weekends sometimes, I knew that if I'm going to be a father, I didn't want my family to have to experience that. So when I talk about that night when the momentum shifted for me, the guy asked me 3 questions that made me realize I was playing small. And
So
because I
we're
was
gonna come to
playing
that. Hold on one
small,
second.
yeah,
Because
okay,
I want to take people on this journey. I want to paint this picture. Now we're gonna get there. I want to paint this picture. So you grew up, like you said, blended family or
yes,
family where parents were divorced. You
yes,
didn't like the experience of seeing your dad
no,
sometimes on weekends. So you have made up your mind as a young person, whatever, young adult. When I do get married, I want to be married for life. I want to have this lifetime family. You meet this beautiful
well,
woman, she walks
look,
through the door. Well, I
yeah,
see a well in there. Wait a
well,
minute.
well,
Okay.
not
No.
exactly. I,
Okay, I'm listening. Okay. Okay.
I
I don't want
said
to
I
be
was.
creating this story. Okay.
I always said I wasn't gonna get married and I wasn't gonna have any
Oh,
kids.
you're gonna
But
not get married and not have kids. That was the plan.
yes, yeah, that was the plan. But my plan isn't always the plan. So my job is to adapt and adjust and make it happen. So
Okay, but wait,
yeah,
but okay, so let's start there then. Because yeah, we're taking people on this journey.
yeah,
So you meet this woman,
yes.
blows your way, you're inseparable. At what point after meeting her did you decide I think I do want to be married?
It was funny. We were out walking because we didn't have a car, so we walked all over Lancaster, California. Wherever we went, to my 2 jobs, wherever we went, we walked. And we just happened to be walking one day, and there was a store, Talbert's Jewelry. And I looked at her and said, "Hey, you want to go in here and take a look at, you know, your rings?" And we went in and looked at rings, and it was funny. I was working at the time as a grocery clerk, and I was working at Toys R Us as well. So 2 jobs, didn't really have a lot of money. We were struggling as it was. And so I bought her a ring set. It was one of those ring sets where you had the wedding ring, the man's ring, as well as the engagement ring. And I think it was like 299 bucks, and it was so bad that when we showed it to her father and his wife, his wife was like, "Is that a diamond?" But I always promised her I would get her a bigger ring. And so eventually it happened. But yeah.
So that was love. She was not worried about the diamond. How long had y'all been together at that point?
Oh man. So you know what? It's funny. I don't even think we hadn't even hit the year mark when I knew
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
it was a wrap for
Okay.
me. Yeah. It pretty much, like I said, we were inseparable after that first night we talked. And so yeah.
Wow. Okay. So going from never getting married to having children to I want to marry this woman because
Yeah.
I gotta lock her down.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And so then you get married, you have the children. And so how old were your children and how long had you been married when this encounter happened with this gentleman that changed your
Okay.
life?
So we got married, after my son was born, we were married. And then at that point, actually when my son was born, I realized I couldn't take care of my wife and my son.
Mhm.
Working 2 jobs with the grocery store and Toys R Us. I wasn't making enough. So I went into the military, and we went in the military. And so when we moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. So by the time I met this gentleman, I was on my way out of the military. I
Mhm.
had finished up two tours, and I decided,
Wow.
we had 3 children, and I decided I couldn't go back out to sea and go overseas and be solo at times, and still be able to take care of my children without her having to be responsible for that. So
Mhm.
at that point, I was around 30 years old.
And your
And
kids, your youngest would have been, or your oldest would have been how old?
so my son, so wow, they would have been, so that was 99. So he would have been around 9. Yeah, he would have been
Okay, so you would have
9.
had like a 9, 8,
Yeah,
maybe
9, 8.
6 year old or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
so they okay, so yeah, so they were, like, at the formative stages where they were actively able to know that daddy's gone, they were missing you, so you were
right,
kinda deciding to shift careers, and then
right.
kind of what happened and how did this and what was going on? You said that you were at your lowest, what was going on with you on the
So,
route to encountering this person?
well, we struggle,
Mhm,
not knowing how to control our emotions, mine mainly, because I was really a hothead. You could
mhm,
talk to me about anything.
mm,
Financially, we were struggling as well because I was playing short. And so, there was just a lot of bad habits that were created. Spent a lot of time watching television, wasting time. Spent
mm,
a lot of time, if I was struggling with something, my go-to was the drink. And so
mm,
that didn't help anything. And, it just was just challenging, for her as well. So, with her being on the East Coast away from her parents for the first time, it was difficult and not having somebody to turn to. So we actually look at it now as that was the best thing for us, being in a
mm,
situation where we didn't have anybody to run to, that we had to solve everything ourselves. But that night, it was at the point where she was really ready to leave. And so, the struggle for me was, if she left, she was going to go back to the West Coast. And if she
mm.
left, with the majority of the time, the mother's getting the children were going to go with her. So that was painful for me. So that night, when I talked to that guy, it just, something in me just said, hey, how can we change things?
Was this a friend or who was this person? Was he someone a confidant or a stranger? Like, who was the person?
That was the first night we met.
Hmm,
First night we met. He and I had met that night. My wife had met him previously, so he came to talk to us about his home-based business. But that was
mm,
my first time meeting him, and I really wasn't interested in a home-based business. I just really wanted to, hey, let's take a look at it. And then, when you get out, we're gonna party like we always do, because my friends were over, so we're gonna
uh-huh,
party like we always do. That's how we spent the weekend. We'd watch a boxing match or some kind of event. We're playing cards, dominoes, barbecuing, drinking, and having fun. And then, usually an argument will break out because, it's alcohol. It doesn't mix, So,
mhm.
but yeah, that's how we spent our weekend. But that weekend, that night, it really changed the game.
Wow, okay, so how does a stranger did you approach him? Did he approach you? Like, take us through
Okay.
that sequence. He was there to sell a home-based business product. You and your
Right.
friends were there. Y'all like, "Okay,
Right.
this dude's gonna come. We're gonna let him talk, and then we're gonna do our thing."
Yes.
But what happened instead?
So, as he finished up and I'm trying to get him out the door so we can start having fun, he's asking me questions, and I'm just giving him my regular no. I don't have time. I'm not a salesman. I don't have the money. It's not a good time for me, maybe somewhere down the line, all these different things. And then he turned to me and he looked back at the group and he turned to me again. He said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I'm like, sure, no problem. It's only going to be a no. To myself, I'm thinking it's only going to be a no, and I'll get him out the house. And he asked me, he said, well, what have you done the last 5 years of your life that has gotten you closer to accomplishing your goals or has significantly increased your income?
Mm,
And I stopped, I was like, nothing. I was embarrassed because, 5 years of your life and you haven't done anything, right? Because and so he said, well, if you haven't done anything the last 5 years, what are you doing now to change things? And
mm,
so I'm like, nothing. And if he'd have stayed, he would have saw us doing what we always do. And that's what, have fun. Oh God, it's Monday. Thank God it's Friday. Repeat the cycle.
mm,
And so the last question he asked me, he said, you haven't done anything the last 5. You're not doing anything now. What do you think your next 5, 10, or 15 years will be or look like if you keep doing the same thing? And Stacy, it hit
wow,
me. It hit me. I didn't. My thoughts now. What my mom always said: "What you do in the dark will soon come to light." And it
mm.
just the realization that for the next 5, 10, or 15 years, me and my wife are going to sit here arguing and fussing and fighting, or she was going to be gone and I was going to be by myself, and it hurt me. And so I just looked at him. I was like, "How do we change this?"
Wow, you literally asked him that in the moment?
I did. I
Wow,
really did.
that took a lot of courage, but okay.
I
I love
did. And he
that.
told me to show up at his house the next day. And that's what I did. I called in sick and went to his house.
Oh, wow. Wow, you were serious.
I
So
was.
it struck you in that moment that it something that came over you like, this is not the life I want to live based on what he was
Yeah.
asking. And you decided to do something that is like nothing to skate over.
Yeah.
That's not because like so many people will hit that question. It's an uncomfortable question in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
you can do one or two things. You can say, "Oh my gosh, I don't know. Give me that next drink. Let me go party. I don't even want to think about it." Which
Right.
you could have done, but something in you, not only in the moment, paused to be honest with him. Then you got up the next day and you actually showed up because you also could have gone to bed and said, "Oh, I was just whatever. I'm not going over
Right.
there. I'm going to work." And you didn't do
Yeah.
that. You literally made a decision that changed the course of your life. So
Yeah.
what happened after you showed up the next day?
Man, well, first of all, he lived in a neighborhood that where I come from a small town, and where I came from, there wasn't any African Americans that looked like me living in any homes that looked like his. And
Wow.
so it was first, he got my attention. And he's working from home. He got my attention. And then I came in the house and he took me downstairs and he started asking me questions like, what do I read? I wasn't reading anything. I said, the only thing I had read up until that point from cover to cover was The Godfather. I hadn't read anything else. And, so through school, I used to cheat on my reports. I read bits and pieces of it.
Confession time.
I can confess that now, right?
Yeah.
But I would write bits, write little bits and pieces from one and then go from there. But I wasn't reading anything. So I had stopped learning because I was done for
Mhm,
school. And so to go back to the goals and dreams, I wasn't dreaming anymore because my biggest dream was always to play Major League Baseball. When that was done, because I didn't realize what I had learned through the process, I thought I was done. That was it. I was wrapped.
mhm,
All I was going to ever do was work 40 hours a week, 40 years of my life, retire,
mhm.
and then try to do what I wanted to do. But that wasn't even going to happen. I wasn't dreaming. I didn't have any goals, nothing. If
You're
I
about
said
30 years old at this time, right? Around
yeah, I'm
30?
around 30 years old, 69, 99. I was born in 69. So yeah.
Mhm. Wow. I interrupted you, so you were saying I interrupted you
Oh,
to get your age element in there. So you're about you
that's
weren't
right.
dreaming at
I'll be
30, which is
55
still
this year. Yeah.
you do not look it.
Thank
You
you.
do not look like you say, "Look,
Thank
we
you.
don't fret."
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, I didn't have any goals. I wasn't dreaming anymore. I was hoping something would happen. In fact, I was so bad that I would pull my car into the driveway, and the first place I would go was to the mailbox, and I wasn't looking for bills. I was hoping there was a check in there from somewhere. I was like, somebody come and help me, but nobody was coming to help.
Wow. So he
Yeah.
asked you these questions, he expands your mind, like, what are you
Yeah.
reading? So
Yeah.
you're basically just saying there is another way to live. And so
Yeah.
you met with him when you left there, what had happened? Did you decide to join his business model
Oh
or what?
man. Oh, I was in on the business. And what that did was that put me around him and some of his other friends who had
Mm,
goals, who had dreams. They had the habits and behaviors of becoming successful. And they were doing it, doing what I wanted to do, living like I wanted to live. And so what he did was he sparked something in me. And I went from I didn't have time to do things to before I go to bed every night, I started reading. And so I read book after book after book after book. And it just started, helping me create a mindset of, hey, look, you just keep pushing, things will change, but you got to keep working on yourself. And so I've done that. And I think one of the matter of fact, so two books, one Les Brown's Live Your Dreams, and then the
mhm.
other book was Dr. Dennis Kimbro's What Makes the Great Great. That
Wow, I
really
hadn't heard of that one. I thought you were gonna talk
oh,
about his other book. Like, I think it's
oh,
the
Think and
Think and
Grow
Grow.
Rich or Black Choice.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one I heard. So say the name of the one again that you read by him.
What makes the great great? So
I'm writing that one down. That's
my
great. Okay.
my mom actually gave me that book, and I'll tell you a funny story about that book. So, when you do something that you've never done, you have to do it in a mindset that you never had. And so my mindset was always, I'm not reading any books that don't have pictures in them because that's too big, if it's too big, right? So my mom gave me this book. She gave me Les Brown's Live Your Dream. I think she gave me the Zig Ziglar book as well. And she gave me Dr. Dennis Kimbro's What Makes a Great Great. Now, the first two books were thin books. I had no problem reading those. No problem. I'll sit down and read that. Dr. Dennis Kimbro's book was like 370 some pages.
Ooh.
And so I looked at that book. I'm like, I'm gonna keep reading. So I ran out of things to read, and I was the only thing that was staring at me was that book. I said, okay, let me read this book. And I'm gonna tell you, I read that first chapter, and it was a wrap for me. I started reading that book every night. It didn't take but a few days for me to get through that book, and
Wow.
it was just amazing staying up and reading it. Not only that, not only was I reading, but I actually purchased a set. So you have to go back to cassette tapes.
Hmm.
Les Brown had a volume one and volume two of cassette tapes. I believe it's possible and something else. But I used to put those in the car. I stopped reading. I automatically stopped listening to the radio. You know, the R&B, hip hop that I was listening to every day. I stopped listening to that. And I started listening to what they call mobile university. And I
Wow.
put those cassette tapes in and I listened to that on my way to and from work. And that's what I listened to. When I got home, that's what I listened to. And so I started changing the game. I started cutting down my time on television. You know why? I
Because you can't get
realized
anything done, right?
not only that, not only can I not get anything done, but what I realized is those people on television, I'm watching them live out their dream. So if I can watch them live out their dream, why can't I live out my dream? And so I cut down on my television time. A lot of the sports that I was spending time watching, I don't watch anymore. You know,
Mm,
so a lot of that changed the game. You have to start finding ways to do what you want. Like I said, you have to do it in a mindset you never had, and that mindset has to be, I've got this. I don't care what comes at me, is I've got this. And that means what that does is that gives you this sense of confidence. It means I've taken control of this and I'm going to start doing the work that I need to do to make it happen because, I'm built for this.
that is so powerful. So two things.
Yes.
Question number one, what was your wife like? Where's my husband? Who is this person? Like, how was your wife taking this change?
so so that's a great question, and I like it because when I knew probably about 3-4 years later that I wanted to be a motivational speaker, and I told my buddy that, she said, man, this is what I want to do. And when I came home and I'm trying to, working on myself to become the best speaker I could possibly become, and I'm saying, well, who better to start with than my own family? If I can't motivate them, I can't motivate anybody. And I came home and I'm like, babe, I know you're going through some stuff, but you can do it. You can get through it. Blah, 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 blah. And she was like, look, I'm not even trying to hear that. I said, well, my kids definitely gonna listen to me. I'm their dad. I go to them, they're like, yeah, okay, dad, whatever. But you got to remember, right? What you do in the dark comes to light. The seeds that you plant, if you nurture them long enough, they'll come to their harvest, right? So what I did was, instead of getting frustrated and letting that pull me back, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm just keep working on myself. And if I work on myself, the buy-in will come. And
Yeah.
so it's taken a while, but the buy-in's coming. I actually conducted a workshop this weekend. Now, my wife's seen me speak a couple times here and there, but it was something about this workshop that I conducted this weekend. And she said, I've seen it before, but there's something about this event. She said, just seeing the people actively involved in this workshop and just hearing their stories and seeing them talk to you. She said that is really big. But not only that, it's really big when you sit there and you're in the car and you hear your wife give a motivational speak in a coaching session to her best friend. I'm like, yeah.
Yep, you got her because it's been going in, so she got it. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
So my part two to the question was because that's a drastic, powerful change, but
yeah.
you had to change. You had to start following people who were doing that. What happened to these friends that were coming over on the weekends to party? What
Ooh,
happened there?
yeah. You know how tough it was to keep telling them, no, can't do. We got something going on. No,
Right,
not gonna
right.
be able to do it. I had to separate myself. Love them to death. Still talk to them when I get a chance to talk to them. But we had to go separate ways. That wasn't the mindset. Sitting around barbecuing, drinking beer, hanging out all, at happy hour stuff, all that. That wasn't me anymore.
Mhm.
I had to focus, I had to change things. But I'll give you this, it doesn't happen overnight. I
Right.
always so I call this movement that I'm on a momentum shift simply
Mhm,
because you have hills and valleys. We're
mhm,
constantly running into obstacles and hurdles, and so just because I started changing didn't mean I didn't fall back.
mhm, mhm.
Those bad habits are ingrained in me. I'm 30 years old and getting older. That stuff is I've been doing for years. So changing it, there's the mindset, sometimes it's in there. All right, I'm all in. Well, you know what? I'll go over here. I'll go, no, no, I'll get distracted. So it's a challenge, but you got
Mhm,
to stick with it. And eventually, what my mentor at that time told me, he said, it takes 30 days to create a habit. And
mhm.
so I'm very competitive. Ask my
You're like,
grandkids, ask my parents. I'm very competitive. I hate to lose. But it was a challenge to me that, you go out and you start doing things and do it for 30 days. And it's difficult to do things for 30 days you've never done if you're in the wrong mindset. But what I
mhm,
learned was that if I do this, even if I go on a streak of 5 and I fall off on sixth day, I went on a streak of 5. So now let's see if I can beat 5. Now
mhm,
I've gone 10. Now if I can beat 10, I could get to
mhm.
20, And so that's my mindset on it. And that's what I just keep doing.
Wow, wow. So you're on this journey, you're kinda trying to talk to the family, they're kinda like, whatever," but you say, "I'm focused, I'm locked in." At what point did you start deciding, okay, this is not just for me. I want to become this motivational speaker. I
Yeah.
want to, and we never did talk about what the gentleman's business was in a way
Right.
that's kind of not important because it was
Right.
almost like the divine connection was for that to lead you to this momentum shift. So
Exactly.
maybe the business took off. You can mention that, but
Yeah.
tell me like what led you to then want to start sharing this and how did you start sharing this with more people, like as a speaker?
So, I got a chance over the years. So I told my buddy on that in that year 4, I said, look, man, I want to speak and I want to learn how to speak from Les Brown. I want to be on stage from Les Brown. I want to be mentored by Les Brown, Les Brown, Les Brown, Les Brown, right? And so in 2009, I had the opportunity to work with Les Brown when I had him on the phone, and he said, hey, I can teach you how to speak.
Mm,
And I was, like I said, with those valleys, the mindset, I'm like, nah, no, that's no, no, I'm good, not for me. You're right. And I backed out. So I would actually not, sorry about that.
no, you're fine.
So I would actually not start speaking until after I'd gotten laid off for 352 days. And I realized that I had
Mm,
to do something different. It was time to stop saying, I'm going to do, I want to do, and really not going after it. So I committed to it in 2000 and around 2015, 2016. And I started doing little work here and there, right? We're getting this momentum shift going. Anytime your car gets stuck in the snow, the one thing you got to do is you got to get it rocking, right? Because you got to get
right.
the momentum to get it going and get it out that snow. And so that was my way of getting it done. So then COVID hit.
Well,
And
before we do that, again, I want to
oh,
slow you down again
got you.
because
Okay.
I think for me, and the reason I'm doing this is
Yeah.
because so many people are on that journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get on the down cycle and it's like, oh my gosh. So that's why I wanted to like hear them hear you in those spaces and you pulled yourself out. So you said
Okay.
you were downsized and you were
Yes.
and for almost a year, what were you
Woo.
doing in 352 days
Oh
before you finally
man.
woke up and said, wait a minute, I gotta remember these books I read. So certainly I know people who have gone through that. That's
Yeah.
a devastating thing in many ways and it can lead
Yes.
you down a dark path. So what were you doing during the period before you said I'm gonna shift to what I really want to do?
So, I was already at that time, I was working 2 jobs. I was working as a custodian on a part-time job. So when I say I'm laid off for 352 days, that was my big salary, my base salary.
Mhm.
I had worked hard to get to the 6-figure income and I was like, cool. And I got comfortable. And because I got comfortable, I was caught slipping and I got laid off.
Oh.
I got laid off. And I had again stopped learning in my career, my skill set, and I was passing up opportunities to improve my skill set and to even take a new job. And then when I got laid off, I was stuck. And so what I did was during that 352 years, 2 days, 352 years, at 352 days, I worked my part-time job. That turned into my full-time job. And I was actually working 7 days a week, as many hours
Wow.
as I possibly could. But because that big income was gone, my bills got behind and I couldn't get hired. And
Mm.
so they would actually, I went through a stint where they would go, Mr. Collier, you got a great resume. We want to interview you. All right, cool. We interview you. Mr. Collier, you're a great fit. We want to hire you. Here's the paperwork. Boom, here's your start date. Boom. We get to the week of the start date and go, Mr. Collier, we can't bring you on board. I'm like, ugh, because you're thinking that everything's gonna stop. You can be back to normal, right?
Mhm.
And I think
Wow.
I think that's a huge reason why we get stuck because we're trying to get back to normal because we don't realize that this challenge that God gave you right here was to clean out the bad habits and move you to another level. And so
Mhm.
when I finally, like I said, realized that I was on this roller coaster ride and I realized that I was trying to control everything. I mean, I'm got all these balls up in the air trying to control how the bill collectors are calling me and how to get the job. Yeah, look, you need to understand if I'm working, I'm paying my bills, but they didn't want to hear that. And so I took on a mindset where opportunities are tests and challenges. I mean, excuse me, problems are opportunities, tests, and challenges.
Mhm.
So I just look up to God, tell him, thank you. I know you got me. I know that this opportunity, test, and challenge is going to take me to another level. And I just move on, do what I can control. But I worked UPS as well. I did all kinds of stuff. I just try to keep my head above water and keep the bills paid. But more importantly, the challenge for me was keeping my wife's mind where I was, that,
Mm.
hey, everything's going to be all right. This is going to be all right. So when those bill collectors were coming with the pink notices and the water was getting cut off, the electric was getting cut off, when the foreclosure notice came, I just had to tell her, look, throw that away. It's not going to happen.
Mm.
It took a while, but eventually she started seeing, it's not going to happen. And we came out of it. We
Wow.
worked our way out of it. But it was a challenging time, but it was a growing moment for me.
And then that 352 days in, you said, I'm going to start doing what I want to do. I remember Les invited me to speak. And
Well,
so when you first shared your story
yeah.
with who was the first audience and how did that feel? And were you the mayor of motivation at that point? Had you already coined this phrase or where
Right.
did that come from?
Well, I was never, I was, so I earned the nickname the mayor from three different groups of coworkers. And, we would go to the cafeteria, we'd be, and they would come back and they go, Eric's out there shaking hands and kissing babies. And so, I just have this fascination with people. I love people. I love to
Mhm.
hear about what they have going on. And I truly believe that there are times when if you just say hello to somebody, you can break up the monotony that's going on in here and really
Mhm.
kind of elevate them to another level, get them happy again, and they'll be all right. That's where I earned the nickname the mayor. And then a friend of mine witnessed me as we started working with high schools to mentor high school students. He started witnessing how I operated. He goes, you know what? You're the mayor of motivation. And so that's where that picked up.
I
But
love it.
the first audience that I shared my story with, I started doing like a little Facebook Live, but the
Oh, okay.
first audience would be the Les Brown Power Voice audience. I was
Okay.
chosen after, I worked with him for a year, and I was chosen to speak on his Les Brown Power Voice Summit 5. And that was an opportunity for me to really share a 7-minute segment of my story. But prior to that, just sharing it with the audience in the training group was a challenge as well.
That's awesome. And then how about the momentum shift? Tell us a little bit more about that again and how that
So,
came about.
so the momentum shift, I played sports since I was 6 years old. I understand the art of the momentum shift. And the momentum shift is powerful because if you just continue to fight through adversity, if you continue to fight through defeat after defeat and setback, eventually you'll land a blow that puts you on the other side of defeat. It'll get you moving again, and you'll start scoring more often. You'll get the flow of things, and it's just going to be a great thing, but you can't give up. I always equate it to, I love boxing, and I always equate it to a boxer who's getting knocked down after the first, second, and third round, but he keeps in there. He keeps swinging, and what happens is he lands this punch, and the opponent starts looking at him like, well, I can't get rid of this dude. He's not going down, and eventually the opponent becomes the victim
Mhm.
because
Tired.
he's taking he's taking the beating now because I've got my energy back. I've got my confidence back. I'm ready to go, and I'm coming at you with a more intense power and level of effort. And so I think that's important. So that's why I call it the momentum shift, because it's giving me more power to take over my life and to take over the fact that I don't have to be a victim and accept what life has given me. I can go out there and create what I want to do. And so when I'm talking about living in the impossible, this was once impossible for me to write a book.
Mhm.
Done that, right? I didn't write a book, but I've co-authored. So now I've
Mhm.
worked with people across the different countries to create this book. I've also spoken on international stages. Les Brown's summit and others have been, like I said, global with the virtual world we're in. And so it's been a big thing and been working with industry leaders, stuff I would have never even thought I could do. So the momentum shift takes you to that, turning that life impossible if you just start focusing on yourself.
I love it. I love it. The momentum shift meets life untapped, that life of purpose, passion, impact,
Yes.
joy, because that's what you're talking about. And I just keep going back to that day. Like you
Yeah.
were skating past it. Yeah, I met this man, he changed my life. But when you
Yeah.
slow down and tell that story about, you're just shooting the breeze. He just came by, he asked you that pivotal question, and you thought about what your life would be 10 to 15 years. And now we're what, 20 something years down the road. When you
Right.
look back at that moment and you see where you are you
Yeah.
pleased? Are you pleased with your journey?
I am, I'm pleased with the fact that I just kept pushing, that I didn't give up. It's easy to give up, quit, and sit back and go, you know what? If I would have done, I wish I would have done. I had the opportunity to do. Man, it's easy to do that. And so many people around the world live in that mindset without understanding how much power they actually have. So I really want to help people understand that you have the power to change your life. You don't have to sit in where you're at now. And then if you're successful, you've accomplished a lot of things, you don't have to get comfortable and think you're done because you're not. Every day we wake up, we have an opportunity to choose greatness over mediocrity. And if you continue to choose greatness, you'll keep pushing to get to uncover the talent that's locked inside of you, that seed of greatness.
I love that. I love that. And I think what's also just striking me as amazing is your seed led you to read Les Brown's book. And
Yeah.
now you are a Les Brown speaker. You speak on
Yes.
stages with the man who first inspired you. Like that is
Yeah.
simply amazing. Like most people are like, oh, I may never meet this author. And I'm an
Right.
author. Yes, I've had people say, oh, I met you. You met this author basically helped transform your life. And
Yeah.
then you began working with him. That's the power of the momentum shift.
It
That's the
is.
power of speaking and doing and being having the courage to change because I
Right.
know for me when I was working on my first book I stopped telling people I was writing it because they would say, girl, put that book down and come to dinner, or
Yeah.
you can write tomorrow, I need you to do so and I had to stop saying that I was writing the book, and I started to say I have a prior commitment. I'm so sorry I'm not gonna be able to join you because I have a prior commitment, but I did
Okay.
have to take that time away to finish. So for you as a father, a husband, a man with, a life and everything's moving, to be able to say to people, can't make it, not going to be able to show up, that took a lot of courage and, sacrifice and intention. So I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was a big challenge. It was tough because you love people and you have friends, but you have to understand that what is it? People come to your life for seasons and reasons. And
Mhm.
that our season it was over, at that time. We got to grow, we got to move forward, and you can't let people touch on your emotions and really be your be like your puppet master where they pull you back. So you got to really focus on yourself. And because I always say this, I've been focusing on myself, but it's not about me. I've learned it's not about me. It's about me becoming the best version of me. But as I do it, I've got to look back down the mountain and see that I've inspired others to climb as well. And so with that, I got a responsibility to them as well. So I got to reach back. I got to help others. I got to be able to connect with others, connect them with others. I got so much of responsibility as a leader to really help others. And so it's like I said, it's about me, but it's not about me.
That is so powerful. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really know that our viewers are going to be inspired because I'm inspired. Well, I
Oh,
always
yeah.
ask everyone, because I am an author and we're on this Life Untapped journey. I always like to ask my guests, tell us one thing that you're reading currently, and if you're writing something, even if it's just a grocery list, like
Right.
what is Sierra Collier reading these days, and
Yes.
what are you writing?
I'm not reading much because I'm working on creating courses and working on my work, improving my workshop. But the one book that I've looked at is titled "The Five Mindsets of the Future," and
Hmm.
I've just started that one, and it's really interesting because you have to you think about the future. That's most people look at it and go, it'll be here one day, but it'll be here sooner than what you think. And
Yeah.
so a quote that I like by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, he says that the future never takes care of itself. It's taken care of, shaped, colored, and molded by our past. He says, our todays are what our yesterdays made them. Therefore, our tomorrows must inevitably be products of our todays. So we've got to start creating that future now in the mindset of one that we've never had before, which is, I have this. I've got to take my shot. I've got to do whatever it takes. I have to become my own hype man. And more importantly, I've got to just keep pushing and choose greatness over mediocrity.
That is a mic drop right there. So your writing would be your courses. So we look forward
Yes.
to that coming up. Tell everyone where they can find you. I know you have an amazing podcast. I've had the
Yeah.
pleasure and honor of being a guest, but tell us on the social media platforms and
Yeah.
podcasts and everywhere they can find you and hire you if they would
All
like.
right, cool. So you can book me for your next motivational keynote speaker, the mayor of motivation, at sierracollier.com. And there you'll find links to all of my social media outlets, Instagram, my podcast. I am the host of the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show, hosted on Envision Broadcasting Network, but it also airs on Apple and Spotify and others as well. And so, like I said, sierracollier.com on Facebook, and the Momentum Shift on Facebook as well. So I'm all over LinkedIn, Sierra Collier, the Momentum Shift. That's me. That's what we're
Awesome.
looking for.
That's awesome. So yeah, we are still early into 2024. It's still time for people to pivot, make
Yes,
that momentum shift, and live a
yes,
life untapped. And
yes.
with that, I thank you, C. Eric Collier, for being my guest for this episode of Celebrating the Power of Stories. Yours has been amazing. I wish you all the best, my friend. Continued blessings, continued
Likewise.
success. And to those who have been watching, please share this episode with anyone that you know can be inspired by this. Because as I said, I know I've been inspired. So please share this episode, leave some comments for Eric, and then also subscribe if you haven't already. So we're going to sign off now. This has been Stacy Hawkins Adams, your host for Celebrating the Power of Stories. And I wish you all the best on your Life Untapped journey.
You're awesome, Stacy. Thanks.